Hey everyone, what is going on? Welcome to my channel. In this video, I will show you how to build REST API using Python Flask and use MongoDB as a database. Also, we will do in 100 lines or less. The Books API will implement CRUD, create, retrieve, update and delete. It is very easy to interact with a cloud-based database using Python and Flask, and I will show you how to in this video. This is a fully functional code and I recommend that you watch all the way till the end. At any point in this video, if you are unable to follow, please let me know in the comment section and I will help you out for sure. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon to get updates. I publish new videos every week. What is Flask? If you are not familiar with Flask, Flask is a micro framework. The micro in micro framework means Flask aims to keep the core simple but extensible. Flask may be micro, but it is ready for production use on a variety of needs. MongoDB is a document database, which means it stores data in JSON-like documents. In one of my earlier videos, I have gone through how to create a MongoDB Atlas database and use core Python to do CRUD operations. I totally recommend watching that video before going through this one. Click on the top right info button to go to that video. The link to video is also in the description below. We will be using MongoDB Atlas, which is the global cloud database for modern applications that is distributed and secure by default and is available as a fully managed service on AWS, Azure and Google Cloud. Atlas free tier clusters provide a small-scale development environment to host your data. Free tier clusters never expire and provide access to a subset of Atlas features and functionality. It has 512 MB storage. If you think I should also make a similar video for your favorite database, Redis, Postgres, MySQL, please let me know in the comment section. Now let's start coding. So for this particular video, we will be using Mongo Engine to interact with MongoDB. If you haven't installed Mongo Engine, simply use pip to install it, like so. Pip free install Mongo Engine. We'll also install Flask Mongo Engine bits and DNS Python because we will be using Cloud Atlas. Let's start with coding a basic Flask example. From Flask Mongo Engine, import Mongo Engine app is equal to Flask __ name db is equal to Mongo Engine This is just a basic skeleton of what the API will look like. So by default, the Flask Mongo engine assumes that the MongoD instance is running on localhost on port 27017. However, as we are using MongoDB Atlas, therefore we will pass in a db_URI. Let's go to the MongoDB Atlas, where we have already created a MongoDB cluster. So for this example, we will create a database API with collection book. Click on collections. Click on create database. Database name will be API. Collection name will be book. Click create. So we created an API database with book collection, which is right now empty. Let's write the code that connects to that database. Database name equals to API. There will be a DB URI, which I'll show you how to figure out. And then app.config. We'll add a config MongoDB underscore host, which will be equal to DB underscore URI. So now how to figure out the DB underscore URI? Go back to MongoDB Atlas, go to Overview, Connect, click on Connect your application, choose Python 3.6 or later, and this is the connection string, which is the DB underscore URI. Copy this and paste it here. One thing to note here is that it's mentioned that we have to replace the password with the password for our user and replace DB name with the name of the database. So we'll use format here and dot format password and then the database name, which is API, which are we. First, we will create a schema. As I mentioned in the intro, we will be implementing a books API, which will be doing create, retrieve, update, and delete operations. So the book object will have a body similar to this. So it will have a book underscore ID, a name, and an author. So MongoDB is a schema-less database, which means that no schema is enforced by the database. However, defining schemas for our documents can help iron out bugs. Therefore, we are writing the schema and defining fields that a book may have. This looks similar to how the structure of a table would be defined in a regular ORM. So we'll create a class book, which will inherit db.document. It will have three fields: book ID, name, and author. Book ID is an int field, whereas name and author are string field. We'll also override toJSON. So this method will convert this document to JSON. And the reason why we want to do this is going to help us return a JSON response for each of our API calls when needed. So let's go over what each of the HTTP methods for our API does. The first thing that this API does is DB populate. There will be a post call and the endpoint will be /API/DB_populate, which populates the DB and returns 201 success code with an empty response body. The second thing that this API will do, the get method to /API/books will return the details of all books with code 200 success. When you do post with the same endpoint, it will create a new book in the database and return 201 success code with empty response body. The third endpoint will be /API/books / the book ID. So if you do a get on that particular endpoint, it will return the details of that particular book, which in this case is 3. So the success code will be 200 if the document is found, and it will be 404 if the document is not found. The second method on /API/books/3 will be put which updates the author and the name fields of that particular book. And the success code will be 204. The delete will delete that particular book with 204 success code. So there will be 3 endpoints in our API and a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 verbs. So let's create the first endpoint, Flask API. Allowed methods are post, and right now the db underscore populate will do nothing. Copy paste line 55 to 57 for the second endpoint and for the third. Second endpoint will be Flask API /books. It will have get and post as per what we discussed in the comments. And the third will be Flask API /books book ID. The methods allowed will be get, put, and delete. And let's change the name of the functions. API books will be API underscore each underscore book. And because we have to we'll pass the book underscore ID in the path, we will add it to the argument book underscore ID. So now we have created the basic skeleton. Let's write the code that will populate the DB. In the DB underscore populate, we'll create 2 books and add them to the book collection in the API database that we created in this video. Book 1. Book ID is 1. The name will be A Game of Thrones. And the name of the author is George R.R. Martin. We have another book with book ID 2, name equal to Lord of Rings, and author equal to J.R.R. Tolkien. So now we will connect to our database and save it, which will basically push it to that particular collection. So how did it figure out which collection to push it to? We haven't mentioned the collection here. The way it does is that the class book basically means that we need to push it to the book collection. If we have another collection which is user, instead of using class book, we should use a class user there instead. So once this is done, let's run our API and try out db populate. In order to test this out, we will be using HTTPie. So HTTPie is a command line HTTP client that is very similar to curl but is much more user friendly. In order to install HTTPie, we can use pip Our first endpoint is /API /db populate, and we will use post. HTTP post db populate. It shows 500 internal server error. The reason is that we haven't returned a valid response, which we should do for all Flask endpoints. So the way we do it is, we'll return make underscore response. As we said, it returns an empty response body and the success code will be 201. So this will be empty and the code will be 201. And it's saying undefined variable because we have to import it from Flask. And let's rerun our Flask server. Go back. So it says 201 created and there is an empty response body. Let's go to our cloud database and see what happened. Earlier the book had 0 results. Now it's showing 4. The reason is we did it twice, so it's showing 4 results. The first time it did was when we got that error. The error came from the Flask. However, the documents were already added to the database. So now it shows only 2. Let's create a skeleton code for what happens if the request method is get, and what happens if the request method is post. And request is also not found, so we'll import. And let's copy paste this line 62 to 65 for API each book as well. And the allowed functions are get, put, and delete. Let's return a response when the request method is get for /API/books. So we'll create an empty books list. And then we'll go through all the book documents in the book collection. For book in book.objects, we will append it to the books list, and then we'll return this books list as a JSON object. Return make underscore response JSONify books, 200. And JSONify also needs to import it from Flask. So what does JSONify does? JSONify creates a response with JSON representation of the given arguments. For this example, it will JSONify the books list. So this covers the get. So let's try the get method for /API/books. This returns 2 documents which have the same fields that we had entered in our db_populate. Let's write the code for post as well. When a user does post in /API/book, it will create a new book and returns 201 success code. So the user will also pass in a JSON. So this is the sample request body that we will receive in a post request. Content is equal to request.json. We'll convert it into a JSON based on the request JSON that we received. And save it the way we did earlier in the db_populate. Save, and then we'll return an empty content with 201. The book ID will be content book_id. Name will be content name, and then the author will be content with key as author. So this will take care of the create request as well. So we'll create a new book, Hamlet, with author William Shakespeare. So we'll do HTTP post on /API/books and let's click enter. So it returned 201 with an empty response body. So looks like it worked as expected. Let's go to our cloud database to see. Let's just refresh the api.book. And now we see 3 objects. The third one is Hamlet. Let's go back and write the third endpoint. So for the get method, we'll get that particular book. So book_object equals to book.objects where book ID equal to the book ID given by the user first to get the first result if we have multiple book objects with the same book ID. If we found the book object, we'll return that particular object, personify book.object.to_JSON, and the code will be 200. However, if we don't find it, we'll return an empty body with 404 code. For the put, we will update the author and name fields for book number 3. So let's write the put. So again, in the put, the user will pass in a sample request body similar to this. Copy paste this. So it will be similar to what we see in lines 99 to 106. So we'll fetch that and convert it into a dictionary using request.json. We'll get that particular book object using the same way we did it in line 93, and then we'll use .update to update the author and the name fields. .update author equals to content author and name equals to content name. We can also do one at a time or only one, but right now in our example we will change both the author and the name for that book ID. And once this is done, we'll return an empty body with 204 as we had mentioned in our comments. 204 success code. And for delete, we will again fetch that object using book.objects, and then we will delete it, book_object.delete, and then we'll return a 204. So let's try a get example. Get /book/API/3. It mentions author is as William Shakespeare, book ID is 3, name is equal to Hamlet. Let's try HTTP put for 3 and we'll change William Shakespeare to 1 William Shakespeare, and we'll change the name from Hamlet to 1 Hamlet. So it's successfully updated with a 204. Let's try to get that using the get method on /API/books. So now it shows 1 William Shakespeare instead of William Shakespeare, and it shows 1 Hamlet instead of Hamlet. And in our cloud database, right now it shows Hamlet because we haven't refreshed it, and once we refresh it, it's going to update the document with 1 Hamlet and 1 William Shakespeare. So let's try out the delete also. HTTP delete, enter. So it deletes with 204, and we will see in our book collection that book ID 3 will not be present. Let's refresh. So now it only shows 2, and the 1 Hamlet book is deleted. So this covers all the CRUD operations for a book object. So that's it for this video. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you have comments about anything, just leave a comment down below and I will reply to it at the earliest. Also, if you haven't, please subscribe to my channel to get updates about the new videos. Thank you for watching.